our motivations as humans really relies around certain states of mind or feelings that we want. You don't necessarily want a lot of money in your bank. What you want is the feeling of being successful, right? You want the experience internally of what it is when you're being fully used by spirit, that every ounce of your creativity and your talents are in play, and you're getting acknowledgement for it. You're getting results from it, right? You're getting work from it. You're getting relationships from it. This flow, this positive spin cycle creates an energy that affects all areas of your lives. You start to feel better. You start to work out. You start to thin up. You start to look younger. Okay, most of us are spinning in a negative spin cycle. Stress, anxiety, just barely making it through our days, trying to scratch the surface on how to get better. But when we really take a stand for the truth, and the truth, again, I'm going to say, is that we have a lot more power over the outcomes of our lives than we normally believe. Every great spiritual teacher has said the same thing. Believe me, I've studied them. All the great wisdom traditions say the same thing, that we as humans have a lot of power to form and shape the trajectory of our lives, meaning that the things that you guys really want, the success, the careers, the jobs, the adventures, the relationships, the family, right? The things that you really want are possible. You just need to learn how to train your mind to create the possibilities for them coming true. It's not a magic trick. It just takes a little bit of consciousness and a little bit of training, okay? And tonight in this call, what we want to talk about, hey, Rohan, welcome to the group. What we want to talk about is this notion of God, this notion of the creator, this notion of the universe. There's all these different terms for it. And I want to state up front that my way of approaching a topic like this is always in the most non-dogmatic way, meaning that I don't have a particular way that I think is right to perceive this notion of God. And I never judge anyone in any way for how they frame it. Okay, the way that I define it in our circle is the notion that there's something greater than ourselves, right? Like we have this individual sense of I'm Todd, there's John, there's Rob, there's Bill. But then there's something bigger that connects all of us. And I think that that definition is loose enough to say, yeah, okay, like there's definitely something bigger going on here than just our individual self. We're a part of something greater. Okay, and when we start there, we can start to have some really interesting conversations. And I'm going to be really open with you guys tonight that even though I've been doing this kind of work, spiritual work, development work, growth work for 20 years, I never really had a very clear idea of what my personal understanding was of creator or God or universal energy. Okay. I never really had a very clear, I always felt it. I would have moments of incredible clarity. I've been in medicine ceremonies and I've had visions of angels speaking to me. And, I've had experiences in moments that had me believing and knowing that there was something greater. But what I'm talking about is the consistent day-to-day experience of being connected with something greater than me. To be honest, for the most part, going through my life, just feeling as if I'm a separate I'm Todd, and I'm trying to do my best in my little corner of the world, right? And not training myself to be connected with the greater. But this has really shifted for me over the last year. And there's been a lot of reasons why and a lot of things that have happened that have made me expand my view of God and the way that I feel about it, guys. And I'm so curious to hear how you're going to share in your groups around it, is that, yes, there really is this energy force that's all pervasive that creates this entire existence. And we, our little minds, can't comprehend it. That cognitive, intellectual part of ourselves that tries so hard to make sense of this universe, such a beautiful part of who we are, can't fully grasp the totality because it is part of the totality. And when we do the work of becoming the witness to our thoughts and our lives, where we meditate and we practice mindfulness and we become the observer to the circumstances, it's in that attempt or that state where we can then just see ourselves and our situations and our lives almost from a third-party perspective, where we are closest to the perception of greater reality or God. But it's more than that, because what I found in my own quest for God is this ability to communicate with this energy, the ability to pray. I'll be honest with you guys. I always had this negative connotation of the word prayer. I didn't grow up religious. Okay. I didn't go to organized religion so much in my whole life. And, growing up in America, I just had like this kind of like weird association with that word. And it wasn't until I got older where I started to attempt to speak to something greater than me, in my own experience, that I started to experience real results. When Nathan was sharing earlier on this call that he's, intending more money to come into his life, and all of a sudden, all this stuff is opening up for him, I would push him and say, hey, is there also other forces in play here that's greater than your small understanding of yourself and my small understanding of myself? The question that I pose to you is, how can we train ourselves to access the much larger totality and learn to ask direct questions from it? At first, it feels, at least for me, it feels like I'm making it up or it's inauthentic. But when you keep practicing this and you really pray and you really try to sense into, through inquiry, what your unique understanding of this greater energy force is that we're in, and you allow all the situations and circumstances of your lives to dissolve, meaning you just see it just for a moment as insignificant or meaningless. And you just see yourself as this little blip of light in this massive matrix. And you try to connect with the creative force that created this entire thing. It's humbling because we become so tiny. And what if we can communicate in that moment with that level of consciousness? One of my teachers a few years back taught me something. And we were in a meditation practice and we were sitting on the grass, and there was these little ants, these tiny ants crawling on the ground. Okay. And he stopped the meditation. He looked at me and he held my hand and he said to me, he goes, what do you think of those? I'm not going to do his accent. He has an accent, but he says, what do you think of those ants on the ground? What is their consciousness like? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, do they perceive the world as you perceive it? I said, certainly not. And so we went through this exercise of trying to understand what it would be like to be an ant on the ground who doesn't have the same awareness that he's sitting on the ground in front of a house in San Francisco, California, in the United States of America, on planet Earth, right? This ant doesn't have any of those ideas. It just has whatever perceptions it has crunching its way through the universe in its own way. And he asked me if I thought that my level of consciousness in some sense was greater than the ants. And I quickly answered, yeah, I think that it is. And then he posed an interesting question to me. He said, what if the way that you perceive the ant and its limited understanding of its universe is the same way that a more advanced consciousness views you? Right? It blew me away. Because just for a moment, I was like, holy cow, as humans, we tend to swallow this pill that we are the most advanced creatures in this entire universe, that we're so advanced. But what if we are the ants being witnessed by a perceiving consciousness so much greater than we can understand? Like, what does that actually mean? We're just part of a continuum here, right? We're just part of it. And so I believe that this notion of God is that connection with the greatest totality of that continuum. And we can ask questions, we can ask for help, right? And this has been the big game changer for me. The ability and the practice of actually going into that space, feeling my body, feeling what I believe to be the truth about God, and asking for assistance. This is a tool that has been around since the beginning of time. And in the modern world, most of us don't fully practice that. Now, I know some of you probably do, okay? And this might be like really obvious for some of you that are listening to this. But for most people, most of the people that I've worked with and trained, we don't really have a constant practice of getting in touch with this universal energy force. So start to think, well, what if he's right? What if what they've always said to be true, that we can actually communicate with this force? What a gift, what an ally. Play with it. As you guys are doing your work this week, I really want you to play with this, even more so than you already are, if this is already part of your gift. But if you're not, Play with it. Meditate. Try to feel and understand what your perceptions are around this concept of God.